Last few days been pretty intense, I guess. It's been very thought-provoking. There's been a lot of reading that goes with the program, but mostly a lot of reflection on how you operate as an individual in terms of your own morality and your own judgment, and how those two things, or how morality informs your judgment. But then also thinking about broader concepts about, what is an ethical society. I think, this program would argue, or, teach you to argue that society is made up of individuals, and so as an individual we all have the capability to think about what a good person or a good society is, and so you come together to sort of work on what you think is a good society as an individual, and you contribute to that. And so a good sort of society for me, particularly in the Aboriginal context, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander context, is what is the pursuit of a good life for an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person, and what does that mean for a good society. So in terms of health, that would be attaining the best possible health to do the things as an individual and a society that we want to achieve. So, there's no hard and fast answer. It's about what good health would look like to enable you to do these things, to have a good life. So there's been one particular instance, and that was around ownership of land. So, it's a very contested space in Australia, and so we're talking about a reading from John Locke, which describes the sort of, I guess, the Western version of land ownership, and that comes from the point of view that all land was held in common until someone cultivated the land, and then if you cultivated the land or produced something from the land, then you had a right to own it. So part of the workshop, I had to describe how that kind of notion of land was, and ownership of land was very inconsistent with, what I was brought up to believe and taught about country, and the concept of country, and how, from an Aboriginal perspective, we talk about country as being you're of the land, and I've heard other people talk about it as if like the land or country is your mother. And so the concept of cultivating and using land, for your own benefit and that sort of stuff, it would be like saying, were you going to cultivate your mother? Or this concept of using it as a resource. Like you wouldn't, you would never do that in an Aboriginal context. You're meant to look after your mother. You're meant to listen to your mother. Your mother tells you the stories so that you learn. So that concept was totally different. And I guess that's one example. So the Cranlana program talks very much about your own morals and values, and how, as a leader, you are meant to reflect those things in how you interact with the world, I guess. So I think that's very important. That we model what we would expect ourselves to be, but also how we expect others to be. And I think that's really valuable. In a personal sense, that's probably a little bit different to how I think about leadership, because I struggle internally with the idea of that, or being called a leader. I don't think I am. I think I'm a person that people see that adds value to society, and they want me to take that forward. And so for me, that's a duty, and so other people look to me to provide some leadership, and hopefully, not always, you like to think that you do that on behalf of others, but always knowing or thinking about, are you doing the right thing, or are you, so there's a lot of self-reflection about how you do things. I think for leaders that don't reflect on what they do and how they do it, that's where, that's probably poor leadership. But I very much reflect most days on choices and decisions you make and how you make those, and I think that is a good attribute of a leader. So I think just personally from the course and doing the course, I think you take those lessons away and think to yourself about how you think about things and how you behave, or what actions you take, and then translating that to, I guess you translate that to your personal life, but also to your work life and how you move forward into the future. So I think I'd like to take some of the lessons, because if you do educational courses, you're meant to think about how you use those. So taking the lessons back and thinking about how I guess I can be a good person, how I can facilitate good at home, in my personal life, in my social interactions, in my work life, or how does that spread throughout, my life. In the next sort of couple of years, I very much hope to keep doing exactly what I am doing now. So continuing to be a good researcher, to doing good research in a good way, for the good of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Yeah, so the Lowitja Institute Research Leadership Award for me is, I guess there's two things that I reflect on, and the first would be, I guess the assessment process for the award, is from peers, other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander researchers, and from the Lowitja Institute itself. And so it's nice to think that other people see you as a leader, even though sometimes the internal conflict about that term is there. So it's nice to see that other people think that my values and how I operate are good and therefore worthy of this recognition. And I guess, the Cranlana program that is a part of that award aims to facilitate even further development for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander research leaders. So again, that's further development of a certain type of leadership, I guess, but also, providing really good skills for critical thinking around leadership and how others action, I guess, leadership. So that's really valuable as well. It's not just about my own journey and understanding, it's about understanding how the world and other people around you operate in terms of their leadership. So that's been very valuable as well.